Yeah, let's just kind of recap some of those games. Starting with Thursday night, West Virginia 33, excuse me, Virginia Tech 10.
Yeah,
Big for the zone blitz darlings of
that's
West
right.
Virginia.
That's right.
Um,
We really needed that one.
we
That was a big
really
win.
needed that one for the over to hit for the season win totals. Did you get to watch any of this game? And what are your thoughts on West Virginia kind of taking Virginia Tech to town a little bit here?
Yeah, no, I did. I watched a bit of it Thursday night. JT Daniels, I'm a fan of his. You know
Hmm.
this. He, as advertised, I think you could say that West Virginia team, and not just throwing the ball either. West Virginia ran the ball. Like the freshman running back, is it Donaldson for him?
Yeah, yes.
He had, I think, yeah, he had 106. He looks dominant. Like they run the ball like from, yeah, they have multiple running backs. JT was, I think, efficient. He always will be. Yeah, and they had some nice receivers. So really good win. And I think they had a couple of interceptions. Well, no, they only had one interception. It was opportunistic on defense.
Sure.
It was, yeah, West Virginia, they're not going to just absolutely, like 10 points is not what their defense is normally going to give up. Normally it's going
Right.
to be a little bit more, but yeah, opportunistic in that one. And it was we talked about it being a really big win for them. They're 2-2 now. Yeah, 2-2, and
Hmm.
it's a lot of the schedule still out there. So I think a big stride forward for West Virginia in rivalry game 2.
Sure.
Yeah, no, they really wanted that one. So good for them.
Yeah, for me, I personally just take a lot more. I give more credit to West Virginia than I'm like down on Virginia Tech. I mean, it's still the first
Sure.
year, and they, yeah, it's a tough situation for Virginia Tech. We'll be judging them on what they're doing a year or two from now, not what they're doing this year. So
Exactly.
Friday night, Syracuse beats Virginia 22-20. Um, Syracuse is kind of good, man. Like they
Yeah.
they really are playing pretty well. Virginia does have some issues. Brennan Armstrong has to be terribly frustrated by the
Yeah.
situation there with the offensive line, and just yeah,
Goodness.
it's a bit rough going. It does seem like they almost. So I don't know if this is fair. Um, they lost Bronco Mendenhall quit, I guess, retired,
He did.
and it seems like they kind of neutered the offense that they had last year that was so effective.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of it is from losing all the pieces that they had. Like
Mhm.
I think it's really hard to lose that much. And to be honest, we weren't jacked about their coaching hire when they made it.
Yeah,
Like we don't have to sit here and act like this was just a stroke of genius by like the Virginia athletic department. So yeah, you hate to say it because Armstrong is a really good quarterback. We saw last year what he can do
mhm.
if he's just given the keys to the car, just told just to go get it. Like he can go do that with anybody. And yeah, it's been a struggle. Like it's been a struggle bus for him this year. So yeah, again, we hate to make assumptions on first year head coaches, which is what Virginia has. But yeah, I will. How about we just say this? Huge win for Syracuse. A lot of people kind of wrote them off.
Mhm.
And yeah, 4-0 right now. Huge for Syracuse. Let's just focus on the positive.
By the way, Syracuse's offensive coordinator Robert Anae
Mhm.
last year was Virginia's offensive coordinator.
Uh-huh.
So that might explain a little bit of what we're seeing with these two teams this year, where last year Virginia just had a
Right.
great offense.
That's right.
This year, Syracuse seems to be figuring some things out. So
That's
maybe
right.
Syracuse is just has to replace Virginia in our minds as far as like ACC teams. So
I like that. Sneaky,
yeah.
sneaky tough, Syracuse. Yeah.
Yes. All right. Saturday. Saturday was a crazy slate. Tons of games to talk about here. We can't spend a lot of time on all of these, but there's a lot of games just to mention. Clemson beats Wake Forest 51-45 in double overtime.
Yes.
Escaped there. Um, had a pretty good offensive game, I would say,
Yeah.
for Clemson.
Oh yeah.
DJ had a good game.
Really good.
The
Really good
running
game.
game didn't. I don't. Is it fair to say the running game was not incredible?
It was decent. I mean,
Sure.
Shipley's a good running back for Clemson.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I wouldn't say that the running game is bad, but like
No, not
it
bad.
it wasn't outstanding. It was yeah, middle of the road, I guess. You could just say
Yeah.
passing like DJ with 5 touchdowns, no picks.
Hmm.
That wasn't like yeah, that's everything. That was Notre Dame DJ. Like that's who
Yeah.
we knew that was there the whole time. And then like we kind of we just it'd been a whole season since he had been really really good. And we kind of forgot about it. Like we were like maybe that's not there. But no, Notre Dame DJ came back, threw 5 touchdowns, no picks.
Hmm.
Wake Forest doesn't have a great defense. We don't have to sit here and act
No.
like it's phenomenal.
No.
Yeah, it was incredible quarterback play in that game. Like we can just say, like we're not going to talk about Hartman as much because Clemson won the game, and so therefore we talk about them more. But Sam Hartman was also just terrific in that, and so yeah, it's really good sign for Clemson. They have another tough game coming up this week against another really good, against a really good defense, not another really good defense, a really good defense, and yeah, it's all out there for them. So I think this has to put an end to the Cade Klubnik talk for a bit, right? Like this he definitely got a lot longer leash after this game.
Yeah. I think going forward, it's still nice if you can get Klubnik in when you have a blowout and get him some playing time. Maybe even in games that are not blowouts but are relatively comfortable, get him some playing time just to continue to give him that experience. But if DJ plays this way, I don't know if you can actually go away from him this year. So I don't know. Props to him for playing well. The defensive backs for Clemson did not play well. I think they've had some injuries or something. I don't know exactly what's going on. Any worry? Because I mean, the one thing we thought we could count on about Clemson was the defense. Like, how worried should they be?
I vary if that's the DBs that they're sticking with. Okay, here's where like the DBs were bad, and we've talked about this. But Clemson has excellent defensive linemen, and there was not much pressure on Hartman. Like they did it was like a real long like a mush handoff almost, where he just sit there and ride it.
That's the West Virginia style, yes.
Right.
I mean,
and then he'd
Wake Forest style. Sorry.
So he would he'd give it or he'd pull it and run or throw. But it was so hesitant. Like Clemson looked hesitant. There wasn't the snap off the ball and just that drive to the quarterback that you're used to seeing from every Clemson defensive end since Gaines Adams or whatever it was. Like they've always had guys that can get after the passer, and they still do. Like Miles Murphy, like Brian Brzee, like they're good rushers. It's like Wake Forest had an incredible offensive scheme for that defense. Like they were able to kind of eliminate the defensive line, and then they absolutely abused the corners. Like, was it number 20 who just got beat on the regular out there? And it was every time you looked up, he was either getting toasted over the top, and they did a lot of different ways, but usually it was just kind of like a lob. Like, we're just going to lob it up, and our guy's better than your guy. And and Hartman was throwing dimes too. Part of it was Sam Hartman is a buzzsaw, and he apparently is really good at throwing a football. So
yes.
It was between the two quarterbacks, 11 touchdowns, no picks. That's just incredible. That's just pretty incredible between those two quarterbacks.
The one thing the ACC has no shortage of is good, talented quarterbacks.
That's right. No, we're not even talking about Devin Leary or any of those guys. Tyler Van Dyke.
Yeah. I will say so. Yeah, Clemson does have some very talented freshman corners. I would like to think that by the end of the year, maybe they'll be figuring some things out. But if they continue to have this poor defensive back play, then they're not going to be back to a top 3-4 type of team in the country. Yeah. Any other thoughts on Clemson before we move on?
No. I mean, a win is a win. I'm not gonna sit here and dock them points. Yeah, I mean they can't cover anybody right now, but they're gonna get some guys back. Those weren't their starting corners. So I mean they'll be fine. We'll find out. Sure. They're playing. They have a big game next week, home game. So
absolutely.
Credit to them for winning it was a coin flip game and they won it. Good for them.
Sure. All right, Kansas beat Duke 35-27. Battle of the unexpected undefeated teams.
The basketball schools. We can just call them the basketball schools. Yeah.
Kansas is now 4-0. Jalen Daniels appears to be the real deal. Yeah. Duke played well. This was not a blowout or anything. Right. But Kansas somehow is still unranked. We can whatever. Not that big of a deal. It's the AP. Who cares? But Kansas looks legit. Is there what is their ceiling this year? Because they can score with just about anybody, I think.
Are you salty about them not being ranked?
They should be ranked just based on their resume so far. Okay. But it's not that big a deal. It's the AP.
Is it much different? I get your point. I guess the other side of it is that is it any different than last year? For some reason, we had Iowa at 2 when clearly they weren't the number 2 team, but they had won all their games, so we put them at 2, even though we knew that they were going to get absolutely smoked by Ohio State and Georgia and Alabama. All those teams would have absolutely smoked Iowa last year, but we kind of had them at 2 because just to make them feel good for a little bit. Like, isn't that kind of what they would be doing if they put Kansas in the top 25? Because Kansas is not. I'm not willing to say it. Kansas is not a top 25 team. Like, just if they end up playing each other, like, they're not for me. And they beat Duke, and that's great.
Yeah,
that's fine. I understand that. Let's just. I'm not hurt by it. Like,
sure,
if they beat Iowa State and TCU and Oklahoma and Baylor and Oklahoma State, and then they can go in. But like, they could potentially lose their next 4 games or 5 games, like, very easily.
Sure, they have wins against West Virginia and Houston, and I don't think that's I honestly think that's more impressive than what a lot of teams have done so far. So if you're talking about a power ranking where you're just ranking the 25 best teams, then maybe not. But I just think that they, as far as just a resume so far, I think why not? Let's have some fun, AP voters.
Let's get weird.
Not a big deal. All right, Michigan 34, Maryland 27 in a game that was a lot closer than either one of you or I expected it to be.
Yes.
Maryland hung tight. Like, they actually looked decent. Their defense was not overwhelmed by Michigan.
Right.
This was kind of the first team with any kind of pulse that Michigan played this year. Any major takeaways from this game?
Blake Corum's really good at running the ball, I guess. Like, he had 30 carries for 243 yards and 2 touchdowns. But like, Maryland did like the sneaky things, because like, usually if you would have told me that this game, what did it end up being? It was a 7-point game. One touchdown game. And that, like, McCarthy actually played pretty well. No picks. Like, actually wasn't terrible. So I don't really have a whole lot of takeaways. Like, I don't. It's a win, which is a win. Like, Maryland can throw the ball well. Like, Tagovailoa he's pretty good, and we know they've got like a lot of weapons at receiver. So I don't have a whole lot for it. I mean, people are going to ask me when we get to the Georgia game. I'll pretty much say the same thing. Like, I don't have a whole lot for you. You won. You beat a team, and you weren't maybe as good as you should have been. But Michigan played their B- C+ game and still won by 1 score against a Big Ten opponent. Like, that's a win. And they can make it all go away if they blow out a team next week, like, it all goes away if you thump Iowa next week for Michigan. So I'm not willing just to sound alarms.
I don't think there's a whole lot to take away from it personally. We'll find out more about Michigan in the future. All right, Georgia 39, Kent State 22. You're the resident Georgia fan. What happened here? Obviously, it's a comfortable win, but I heard somebody describe it as Georgia was just kind of playing with their food. They're that kid that's they were just playing with their food. They weren't actually. Well, is that a fair description of what happened?
Okay, so truthfully, I wouldn't know because I didn't want to play this game because it was on SEC Network Plus. I tried to listen to it. I listened to it but listening is just for the birds, man. That sucks.
Yeah.
But I kept up with it, if that makes sense. And it was Georgia never punted the ball. Like, Georgia had over 500 yards of offense. They moved the ball. Lad McConkey can't seem to hold on to the ball for some reason. Had a couple of fumbles and dropped a couple of touchdowns. He played just about as poorly as he could, but he'll be fine. Like, Stetson was still good, and Brock Bowers is still a beast. Like, so there are some Georgia fans that are just freaking out and losing their mind. And to those people out there, like, I've been a fan long enough to, like, this game doesn't bother me. Like,
sure.
I was there when, like, Georgia went to overtime with Georgia Southern fairly recently. That hasn't been that long ago. Georgia was playing in the Belk Bowl against Louisville not that long ago. They lost in a rainy day to Nebraska in the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl. Again, not that long ago. It's been an incredible 5-year stretch, and there's some spoiled Georgia fans out there that think that we should have beaten them by 70. Maybe they should have. It doesn't matter. In the end of the day, it's a 3-touchdown win against you played your C+ game. You didn't play well. You didn't play very well. I don't know. It's Kirby Smart is thrilled with this result. This is everything that he wanted. Like he would he would much rather have the score be 39-22 than 45-0. Because then the kids might actually think that they're pretty good. You know, like he's kind of one of those guys, kind of like what Saban is. So yeah, I'm not willing just to. I don't really know what happened. Like, I really don't. Like, they kick too many field goals. Like, that's kind of the truth of the matter. Georgia kicks a lot of field goals right now.
Yeah.
So they'll be fine. Like, yeah, not worried about it. I think they'll come out. I think they'll thump Missouri next week, and we'll all forget about it.
Here's the thing: if Georgia had beaten Oregon 39-22 and Kent State 49-3, no one would bat an eye at that. But the way it actually played out probably makes you feel better about their ceiling long term. So, yeah, you might have a few more fans that are in anguish, wondering what the matter is. But yeah, Georgia's going to be perfectly fine.
I think it just shows how long you've been a fan. Like, Georgia's had a really good stretch the last 5 years, had an incredible stretch. It shows how long you've really been a fan of Georgia if this really bothers you. Like, if this really bothers you, you have not been a fan longer than 5 years of Georgia, because there's a lot of programs out there like, Texas and Nebraska and Florida State that would pay just unbelievable amount of money to have the last 5 years that Georgia's had. So, just take it and move on. It's kind of the same thing as Michigan. Just move on to the next one.
Sure. All right, Baylor 31, Iowa State 24, and then this was actually a 31-14 game in the fourth quarter before Iowa State scored the last 10. Baylor, this was kind of just a battle of the really good head coaches that are at overperforming programs, and Baylor sort of sat on Iowa State. Like, were you able to watch any of this game at all?
Bits and pieces. Yeah, bits and pieces. Dave Aranda's a really good coach.
Yeah.
I don't know what you want from me here. This was a battle of the coaches that it's a battle of the coaches that Nebraska would like to have. They might not get, but Nebraska would like either one of these coaches. They're both good football teams. Like, I don't have a whole lot more other than that. They're both good football teams, and it's like someone has to lose. Yeah. Iowa State. It was Iowa State lost to Baylor this year. Baylor's just their quarterback, Blake Shapen. He's really efficient. Like, he's a very efficient thrower of the football, takes care of it, no picks.
Yeah.
That's everything that a Dave Aranda led team would want. It's a pretty good match so far. Pretty good match for Baylor. It makes BYU beat Baylor. That just keeps improving BYU stock, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. Auburn 17, Missouri 14 in overtime. This game was all kinds of weird. Bruce Feldman reported before the game that Brian Harsin would be fired if Auburn lost this game, which is just kind of stupid. If you say that, that means you've decided you're going to fire him, so you might as well fire him.
That's right.
For anybody that watched this, Mizzou, with 2 timeouts, they had a first and at the end of regulation, they had 2 timeouts left with like a minute to go, had a 1st and goal at the 3-yard line, and decided to kneel it and try a field goal, and they missed the short field goal. Went to overtime, gave up a field goal to Auburn, and then their running back was literally diving into the end zone, lost the ball, and it's a touchback. Game over. Auburn wins. Craziest, I don't know.
You didn't quite do it justice. You didn't. Okay. He was walking in to score the winning touchdown in overtime. Yes. There was no one in, he was by himself over there. And he reaches the ball out as he's crossing the end line there. And the ball just comes out of his glove and just goes through the end zone. He wasn't hit. It wasn't like he was just really a helmet on the ball and it pops free. No, he just dropped the ball as he was going into the end zone. These 2 teams are awful. These 2 teams are absolutely terrible. So this was Missouri's chance. I don't know if they'll win a game in the SEC unless they get Vanderbilt. Maybe they'll get Vanderbilt. But man, these teams are bad. Auburn won the game, but it felt like a loss because they were up 14-0 early and then didn't score again until overtime. And that was even a field goal. So Harsin's gone. It's over. End it now for us, please, because it's painful to watch.
There's literally no coming back.
No.
Yeah. It's so bad. I think I want to say it was their first drive of the game. They actually scored a touchdown, and they ran the ball 14 times and passed it 0. If I remember, if I'm getting that right, they literally
that's right.
do not They might as well have you or I out there at quarterback for all the good it would do them. They cannot throw the ball. It's pathetic.
Yeah,
and
they somehow managed to turn Tank Bigsby into a 3 yards in a cloud of dust guy. Tank Bigsby is one of the most exciting running backs in the SEC, and I feel sorry for him. I really do.
Yeah. All right, TCU 42, SMU 34. I believe that's the battle for the Iron Skillet or something like that.
Is it really?
Obvious,
Iron Skillet? Okay.
I think that's right. And a big deal with Sonny Dykes. I think he was quoted before the game as saying, if I was an SMU fan that bought a ticket, I would boo me too.
Wow.
So yeah, it was a fun game. That's what I'm assuming just based on following the score a little bit. I was not able to watch it. I had a lot going on Saturday in the real world where I had a rare Saturday where I had to work. Were you able to watch any of this game at all?
I did not watch a single play. I will be honest. So yeah, not much to add there. Yeah, good for TCU though.
There's a thought out there that TCU might be a sleeper in the Big 12, which I think at this point maybe everyone in the Big 12 is a sleeper.
Who's not? Yeah, I was gonna say as opposed to someone who's not, Texas might not be a sleeper. they might just be bad. But everyone's kind of a sleeper. The Big 12 is completely wide open. If Kansas and TCU are undefeated right now, and Oklahoma and Texas have 3 losses combined, we don't know what we're doing anymore. We're just gonna kind of. It's like in NCAA football, you can just auto sim through a whole season.
Yeah.
That's kind of what we get, which is a whole bunch of random teams undefeated at the end.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, huge upset. Middle Tennessee 45, Miami 31. And this game was never really that close. Middle Tennessee was just leading the whole way, basically. Miami's offense looked like crap. Tyler Van Dyke actually got benched for a bit. Jake Garcia had to come in. Their corners got absolutely torched over and over and over for long passes by Middle Tennessee State. Where do you even start? What do you take away from this game?
I don't even know, dude. What am I supposed to say? Middle Tennessee had 408 passing yards, and there was an 89-yard touchdown, an 89-yarder. Somehow it wasn't a touchdown, and a 98-yarder, which was a touchdown. Yeah. There was also a 69-yard pass. They're just throwing bombs, and Miami just didn't cover deep. Which that's the thing. Miami has talent. Some of Miami's DBs are 5 stars. Actually, a number of them are. So I don't really have any really good answers here for you.
I do think there is something. There's a slight chance, and I say this very carefully. There's a chance that Mario Cristobal is Jimbo Fisher. Great recruiter, relatively decent program builder.
Yeah.
Just crappy offensive coach. And I also think that Josh Gaddis might be low-key trash. I know he won the Broyles Award last year as the best assistant in college football.
Michigan's offense is better this year.
Yeah. Michigan's offense is better without him. Yeah. And basically, if you look at what Michigan did, they kind of went back to the old Harbaugh man-ball stuff last year when they were actually good on offense again, as opposed to what Gaddis really was doing the previous year or two when they weren't very good. So, I think obviously on paper that looked like a great hire, and I just don't know that it's going to work out. It's not very deep into the season. That's probably overreacting. And I'm speaking specifically of the Gaddis hire, not the Cristobal hire. I think the Cristobal hire still works out fine, but I think there's a chance that maybe 5 years from now, Miami is going 9-3 when they think they should be going 11-1 or 12-0.
Yeah, no, that was kind of the complaint for Cristobal at Oregon too. He could always recruit. He had dudes there.
He made Justin Herbert look average.
That's right. Some of the in-game stuff, you were just sitting there kind of scratching your head, not sure, what are we doing here? He has 2 of the best middle linebackers in all of college football, and sometimes they kind of disappear. You can't even see them sometimes. So it's not the first time that that criticism's been headed his way.
Yeah. Okay, here's a team that is definitely overperforming this year. Minnesota 34, Michigan State 7. Minnesota
Yes.
has just laid waste to their entire schedule, and now they finally have a team on there that you have to like seriously take notice of. Which I think Michigan State might actually kind of suck this year, but Minnesota. They, also, this was basically a shutout. Michigan State scored a touchdown in the last minute to make it to get their only score. It was 34-0 before that.
Right.
Minnesota's legit good. Michigan State is probably pretty bad.
Yeah.
Do you agree with both of those statements?
No, I do. 100%. Minnesota has one of the largest margins of victories in all of college football. They trail only Alabama in margin of victory,
Wow.
averaged out. It's almost 40 points a game right now, 39.8. So almost 40. 4-0 against the spread. I mean, Vegas can't make a number big enough for them. They're just hammering everybody. Yeah, they're good, dude. Like, you have Tanner Morgan, who's there. I mean, he's been there for like just freaking forever. Ibrahim's like, he was back. Remember, he got hurt the first of last year against Ohio State, missed a full year. He's back, had 100 yards rushing and a touchdown. They've got weapons. PJ, like Fleck, they are rowing the boat. I think, isn't that their thing? Don't they row the boat? They row the boat. So yeah, 4-0. And I just full disclosure, I'm making them one of my locks this week. I haven't even, I have looked at the number, but it wouldn't really have mattered the number. They're just hammering everybody. So yeah, with you on Minnesota. By the way, you called them to win the Big Ten West. I'm just, hey, that looks really freaking good right now. That looks really good.
It could still go wrong. Their last two games are against Iowa and Wisconsin. I also said that I would take the field over them. So don't give me too much credit.
But no one else, like, that's not something that many people put out there. Most people said Wisconsin, a few sprinkled in Iowa. Yeah, not many went with the Golden Gophers. The Gophers, as they call them in Minnesota.
Yes. All right. Texas Tech 37, Texas 34 in overtime. Huge win in Lubbock. Did I say that wrong? Anyway.
Lubbock. Yeah.
Lubbock. Yeah. Rough look for Texas. This is we've seen this now a number of times.
Yeah.
Under Sark. I know that Ewers was out, but this should not happen, should it?
No, it shouldn't. Texas was one of my locks of the week, full disclosure.
Same.
At halftime, it was 24-14. Feeling really good, feeling excellent about it. And the Texas Tech coach in the locker room post-game said that Texas quit, that they made Texas quit. And dude, that's so telling, man. That is so telling. Coaches don't say stuff like that if they don't mean it. Like, he knows that's going to get out there. He thought that they made Texas quit. I mean, they did. To go and outscore a much more talented team. I mean, they still had Bijan Robinson. They still have Xavier Worthy, Jordan Whittington. Texas still had weapons, and you went out and you shut them down in the second half and overtime. They scored a combined 10 points in third, fourth quarter, and overtime. Yeah, head scratcher. I don't have much for you here. There's no analysis that's just groundbreaking that I can give you. That was just a really poor game from Texas.
I think probably my biggest takeaway is just that the Texas defense looks more like the Texas defense of the last couple of years.
Yeah.
The one major, I think you have to view the Alabama game as the outlier. Their defense played out of their mind that game.
Yeah.
But other than that game, it's just their defense has just not looked all that good. And I think if Texas and Alabama played again and Alabama was a 20.5-point favorite, I might take Alabama again. I honestly might. I like it. I just feel like that is the game that is the outlier until proven otherwise.
Yeah. No, agreed. It's it's a team that played up to Alabama for 1 week. For 60 minutes, they played up to Alabama, lost the game, emotional loss, and they haven't really got back to that state since.
Yeah. In 2019, we saw them hang with a ridiculous LSU team for a while.
That's right.
I mean, that was not the same Texas team the rest of the year.
Exactly.
So there's some issues there that it might take a little longer to work through those than we maybe anticipated. Okay, one of the biggest games of the day, Tennessee and Florida. Tennessee breaks their losing streak, beats Florida 38-33. Hendon Hooker is the truth.
The truth.
Anthony Richardson also played well, had over 400 passing yards, and they still
450.
lost.
Over 450 passing yards. This dude couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat against Kentucky, and he's dicing Tennessee up. Yeah, that was shocking to watch.
What? I mean, what are the major takeaways here? Because it feels like you can come out of this feeling pretty good about the direction for both of these teams, right?
It was absolutely a moral victory if you believe in such for Florida. Because Florida could have quit in this game many times, and Florida was froggy in this game. Like, they were right there with them the whole time. Tennessee's offense is a buzzsaw, especially at home, especially like even early in the game. Like, it just looked like it just hummed. It just did. Hooker is really good. The receivers are really good. Brew McCoy, you remember him, the 5-star that bounced his way around USC, a couple other places, ends up now in Tennessee, and he had over 100 yards receiving, long touchdown. Jalen Hyatt, good receiver. They were good. Like, Tennessee's really good. And Florida, we talked about the moral victories. This is one of those. Florida's not as good as Tennessee this year. They're not. They're not as good of a football team, but they played up to that level. They played up to that level. Richardson, like, that was the Richardson that beat Utah. Like, Richardson beat Utah almost by himself, it felt like, in week 1, and then he completely disappeared. And they should have lost the next 2 to Kentucky and USF. They ended up beating USF, but the quarter, like, he's there. He's fine. Richardson's the guy. He threw for 450. Yeah. He threw for 450, only 1 interception, and he doesn't really have great weapons to throw to. Like, that's the thing. He doesn't have great receivers. That was impressive. Like, they're going to be competitive with someone. And I think Florida's going to sneak up and get somebody later on in the season that they shouldn't. Like they're going to sneak up and pick someone off later in the year. I was impressed with him. I think Napier, he has a bunch of fighters. Like, they get there and they fight. So I watched every bit of this game. It was a really good game. Credit really to both of these teams. I think both of these teams have to feel good going forward.
Yeah, I think this game left me. I come away from it feeling better about Tennessee for the season, and I feel better about Florida just as a program.
Long term.
Yeah. I don't necessarily feel, and I think I agree with you that Florida can beat somebody they're not supposed to later this year. But this is like Napier was a really great hire. I really believe that. And if he can figure out how to recruit at a top 10 level, like, they're going to be very good. They're just going to be very good. I think that I think we had a bit of a debate in the offseason about Napier versus Cristobal.
Right.
I was a little bit more on Napier. You were a little more on Cristobal, and I kind of came to your side after the first couple of weeks of the season.
Well, it was very impressive what Cristobal is doing. Yeah.
Yes. Obviously, it's 4 games into each tenure. We can't make a call. I feel good about Napier. Like, I really think that this is going to work out to some degree. I'm not saying he's necessarily going to win titles, but that was a great hire.
Yeah.
He seems to know what he's doing. And I like coaches that make good decisions on game day and recruit well and have their team prepared, like, all of those things. He might not be the best in the country at any one particular thing, but I don't know that he has any glaring weaknesses as a head coach.
And the players show up and play for him. Florida fought, like, in that game against a team that was more talented than them overall and had just was clicking more. I mean, second-year head coach, like, they had more stuff established, but Florida sat there and fought back in that game. I was impressed by that as well.
So just really quick, 1 month from now or so, number 7 Kentucky plays number 8 Tennessee. The winner of that will almost certainly be the second best team in the East, the SEC East. Who do you think is going to win that game today?
So I had Kentucky in the preseason as being second place in the SEC East, right? Mm-hmm. I'm going to stick with that. Kentucky's done nothing to convince me otherwise. Now, they haven't been impressive in games, but they have won those games.
Sure.
Yeah, that game is in Neyland Stadium in Knoxville, a home game for Tennessee, which is a big deal. That stadium was bouncing Saturday, and it probably will be against Kentucky. So, yeah, they're both top 10 teams right now. Like, that's crazy. They're both top 10 teams right now. So, I'm gonna stick with Kentucky for a little longer.
All right, I'll stick with Tennessee. Either way, I think that's gonna be a huge game.
Yeah,
especially if both of those teams can kind of like continue their momentum going forward and don't have a couple of losses or whatever. Okay, here was an unranked matchup, but one of your games to watch of the week. Obviously, I watched it as a Notre Dame fan. Notre Dame beat North Carolina 45-32. They went scoreless in the first quarter. North Carolina was up 7-0, and then it was pretty much all Notre Dame after that. This game was not as close as that score actually indicates. North Carolina scored the last 2 touchdowns of the game, and Audric Estime could have had yet another touchdown when he fumbled right before reaching the goal line. So this game was really more like a 52-20 type of game.
Right.
I came away feeling quite encouraged as a Notre Dame fan. And also, if you're a North Carolina fan, like, you have to feel so bad about your defense. Gene Chizik is not the real deal. I'm sorry. Like, that was it's just not going to work out, a defensive coordinator. They gave up 35 first downs to Notre Dame.
35 of them.
35. Yeah. That is the most first downs a Notre Dame team has had in a game since 1974.
Yeah.
That is insane. Like, that is wow. You know how you hear the phrase, you're nickel and diming the other team to death. With North Carolina, you can kind of dime and quarter them to death.
Yeah. No, I like that. You just take just a whole dollar. Like just
$1. You're not necessarily going to hit a ton of 50-yard plays, but take all the 12-yard gains you want, because they are just there for the taking. No matter what you're running, you can run the ball, you can pass the ball. It does not matter. It's just going to work. So I'm a little hesitant to give a whole, I don't know how much we can definitively say about the Notre Dame offense about this.
Yeah.
But a week ago, I said that their defense is top 10 and their offense looked, what was the word I used? Competent. Different word. I used a different word, but that was essentially the idea. That's kind of what functional, I think, was the word. They looked like what a functional offense would do against a just terrible defense. Mm-hmm. And maybe even a little better than functional. Drew Pine looked pretty good.
He did.
He completed a 30-yard pass down the middle to Lorenzo Styles, his first touchdown of the season. Michael Mayer was a beast yet again. And it was helped by the fact that North Carolina decided, hey, maybe if we can't cover him, let's just not even try. I don't know. My main takeaway from this is that Notre Dame looks relatively decent on offense, and North Carolina's defense is so bad. It is just terrible. Drake May is pretty good, threw 5 touchdowns. And some of that was a little bit fake. I mean, there was 2 of those that were when the game was well out of reach. But, the main takeaway for North Carolina is, Drake May is good, but also, their defense is just so trash. Did you watch any of this game?
Just a very little bit. There was, I was more glued in. This was was this the 3:30 window? Wasn't this the 3:30
on ABC,
window? Yeah,
yep.
It was just a loaded window, and I was trying to watch Tennessee, Florida. There's another game I was also watching that, and this here was game number 3 that I was just sneaking in a little bit if the other 2 were on commercial or whatever. So the first downs is incredible. Time of possession, it was almost 40 minutes possession for Notre Dame, close. Completely dominant, just completely dominant. It didn't, as long as you didn't drop the ball, while you're running to the end zone, you scored touchdowns against North Carolina. And they, this was only their first loss. North Carolina was actually 3-0. As much as we talk about how bad their defense was, they're still, they gave up, you're right, they give up lots of points. They do score quite a few. They score quite a few points. And maybe in the ACC, that's maybe, they can probably win 8 or 9 games just by scoring that many points. Defense is completely optional. It looks like they don't try. It looks like they legit don't try. So, good for Notre Dame. Notre Dame's offense needed this. I think Notre Dame's offensive coordinator needed this.
Yes.
Just a game where everything just goes right. It just goes right. Like they scored 24 points in the second quarter. Like how long had it been since they had done that? Like it just felt like an eternity. So yeah, it was a feel good game for Notre Dame and a game that like a big win against an undefeated opponent. Needed it.
Yeah, and I'll give Tommy Rees some props. I've been kind of hard on him in the past, and I don't realize he was playing a terrible defense, but he did call a good game. That he made some timely calls. He made some creative play calling, and yeah, just another stat that kind of encapsulates like the North Carolina defense as well as the style of offense Notre Dame is going to play. They had 3 running backs. Notre Dame did with over 100 total yards, which I believe is like the first time in school history that's ever happened. So yeah, it did not matter. Like I was legitimately saying to myself in the second quarter already, man, I hope they have enough running backs to go around because they might be tired by the end of the game because they're just going to be pounding it the entire time, and it's going. So yeah, had to feel good about it if you're Notre Dame. North Carolina, not so much. Going forward, let's see. The next game we want to talk about here is Oregon 44, Washington State 41. Kind of a crazy, wild game.
Yes.
How much of this did you see? And do you have major takeaways?
Yeah, a bit. Bo Nix is sneaky good. Like he has these games, and this is the Bo Nix experience. Like you have the Georgia game early on, and it's just like, what is he doing? Like you can't score anything. Since then, Bo Nix and Oregon have rebounded. They're pretty good. Washington State is actually a good football team. Bo Nix had almost 430 yards, 3 touchdowns, only the 1 interception. That's good. That's what you like. That's all you're asking for from Bo Nix. You're not asking him to do anything more than that. That is incredible. So yeah, they ran the ball well too. It wasn't just throwing. Oregon's offense looked really good. Oregon's defense was not phenomenal. Like it wasn't phenomenal, but yeah, it's at the end of the day still a win. Like I think we have to get over some of these notions that like it was a win, but against a less impressive team, and that like actually is degrading for you. Like no, it's a win, and you're like it's just about your record. It's really about your record. Just keep winning every game. This is really big for Oregon. They showed it's signs of positivity on offense. Like they're getting better. Oregon's getting better on offense.
Yeah, I think I'm surprised by how Washington State has played pretty well this year, despite Cameron Ward, who we kind of thought would have to carry them on his back. Like he's been okay. He's also thrown like 5 interceptions this season. He had 2 against Oregon. I'm surprised how well they're competing, even with him making some mistakes. He threw a very costly pick 6 at the end of that game when they were driving to take the lead. But props to honestly both teams. Oregon bouncing back nicely from that Georgia demolishing so far, and Washington State also showing a lot of fight this year so far.
Right. Washington State has a 3-game stretch where they go at USC, at Oregon State, and then home for Utah. Like, it's great that they feel good now, but like you're not winning those games. So enjoy your feel good moments right now.
Sure. All right. One score. We don't have to talk about this game really. Kentucky 31, Northern Illinois 23. I just thought it was notable because Kentucky is a top 10 team now and seem to have some trouble with a G5 team. Any concern at all, just real quick before we move on?
Yeah, I mean, maybe a little bit. Like Northern Illinois is not good. They've hugely underperformed this year. They've not been very good, Northern Illinois. Would have liked to see the offense maybe do a little bit more. Will Levis had 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Like, can't really blame him too much. 31 points against a team that's like not a very good defense. Like, yeah, I'd like to see more, maybe just a little bit more. But again, it all goes away. Like it all goes away if Kentucky keeps winning. So they have a huge game this weekend against Ole Miss.
Yes.
Maybe they just kept a few things in the bag and just kind of a vanilla offense because they knew they could beat Northern Illinois, saving some stuff for later in the year, starting this next week.
Yeah, the one thing I'm looking for with Kentucky going forward is what kind of offensive line play do they get? It has not been their typical great offensive line play the first several games this year. Could change. That could turn around. We see offensive lines gel midseason all the time. So we'll see going forward. All right. Maybe the game we were looking forward to the most, Texas A&M and Arkansas in Arlington. A&M pulls it out 23-21. Arkansas has a game-winning field goal at the end, hit the top of the upright, fall backwards. I've already seen it referred to as the oink doink
Yeah.
because Arkansas is the pigs.
Yeah, I like it. All right.
So A&M was favored by 2.5, so we at least got our lock win on this game.
Yeah.
But I have to believe, like deep inside, we were both probably rooting for Arkansas to win outright.
Yeah, it wasn't even that deep inside. It was pretty outward as well. Like, yeah, it's Arkansas is all that's good in the world. A bunch of young up and coming guys who've been told that they're not very good and they're getting there. Like Sam Pittman is the Ted Lasso of college football. Like he's kind of that guy. And Jimbo Fisher is slimy. Like he just really is. Did you see his sons in the post game press conference? Like it was like his boys. They were up there, and the one of them literally has like thousands and thousands of dollars of like necklaces and jewelry on with his little snapback. And it's like the kid's way too old. Way too old. He's like 20 years old or something. Like he's older than some of the players probably. And it was I don't know. It really annoyed me that kick did not go in. Like words don't quite describe how much that annoys me that Arkansas lost that game because I felt overall Arkansas was the better team.
Yes.
A&M was so stinking lucky. I mean, okay, the field goal was part of it. The fumble, which I've never even seen that happen like in real life. It's 99 yards and it should have been 21-7. In A&M, you feel like it's almost done. Mm-hmm. Somehow they get the fumble and they're running it back. And
by the way, so I should just explain what we're talking about here. Arkansas was up 14-7. Is that correct?
Yes.
And they were driving, and they had a 1st and goal at the 3-yard line. KJ Jefferson, their quarterback, just straight QB power, was running up the middle. It was 1st down. He decided to try to leap over the line with the ball outstretched, which was just terrible decision. I mean, it's 1st down. You got 4 chances to pound it. Just high and tight, baby, and get your yard. But the ball was knocked out. A&M recovered it and then continue. You were kind of sharing what was happening on the play there.
Yeah. So A&M's running the ball back. I believe it was Rocca Sanders, the running back, goes to tackle the A&M returner. And another, I think it was, I forget what was the name. Was it Richardson, the safety for A&M, comes and literally takes the ball away and proceeds to run like 70 yards for a touchdown.
Yeah.
And that was deflating for Arkansas. Like that took the juice right out of the building for them. It was really hard to watch. Max Johnson was he was throwing balls. Did you watch this game? I don't know if you watched it much or not. He was fluttering balls all over the field. Yeah. And somehow, like in the spirit of Johnny Manziel, where it only finds the guy that the A&M receiver, like it's a complete duck in the middle of the field, and it's somehow only his guy gets it. Yeah. Made no sense. It made no sense that A&M won this football game to me. We did have a lock on Arkansas that did hit, but Arkansas was so much the better team in this game. If you watch this game at all, Arkansas was the better football team, and 9 times out of 10 would have won this football game. I feel bad for them that they didn't.
Yeah. By the way, like on that fumble return, well, first of all, if you don't fumble, eventually Arkansas is going to score, go up by 2 touchdowns. They're going to win the game.
That's right.
On the return, if he's actually tackled at the 30-yard line or whatever, and then A&M has to go 70 yards on offense, like that's probably not going to happen. So, it was A&M's best offensive play that of the game was the handoff on the fumble return. Well, look at
the stats here. Arkansas had more 1st downs, more total yards, more passing yards, more rushing yards, more time of possession. Arkansas was 2 of 2 on 4th downs. They had a better 3rd down efficiency. Like A&M's offense was not very good, and they beat a top 10 team, and that's kind of frustrating for me. Yeah, it is.
Sure. Okay, Ohio State 52, Wisconsin 21. This was the big evening ABC game, but I feel like probably most of us knew sort of how it was going to go. Any surprises or any takeaways here?
No. No. Not really.
Is Wisconsin bad?
Yeah, maybe. They could be like there's a possibility. This is a team that lost to Washington State 17-14. That was 2 weeks ago. People forget about that. But look at the rest of their schedule. Like they're playing Illinois this week. Like they can beat Illinois. Then they're playing Northwestern. They can beat Northwestern.
They better beat
Michigan
both of those
State,
two.
They can beat Michigan State and Purdue and Maryland and Nebraska. Like, yeah, they're not like this is Wisconsin, man. Like, yeah, like they're probably going to be 9-3, 8-4 territory at the end of the year, and they have a huge game against Minnesota, the last game of the year. If they win that, they could go to the Big Ten champion. Like they easily, yes, they're kind of bad right now, and it looks not great. And Graham Mertz threw for 94 yards last week. Had a 15 QBRs. QBR is 15. And like they still could win the Big Ten West. That's Wisconsin, man. That's who they are.
Yeah. So how good is Ohio State? Compare them to Georgia and Alabama right now. Excuse me.
Really good. Clicking on offense. Running game, also really good. 200-yard rushers. Like it's not just throwing. So yeah, you don't have Jackson Smith and Jigba right now. And Emeka Kabuka is really good. Marvin Harrison Jr. Fleming's back. Remember Julian Fleming, the number 1 overall receiver in his class. And the defense is improved. So, yeah, they could. I hate to put them up against Alabama and Georgia right now. It's so hard to know. Like it's so hard to know.
Yeah,
they look really good. They look really good.
Yeah, I know Harrison wasn't even like nearly the leading receiver in this game, but I did hear a whisper from someone that if he was eligible to go to the NFL draft next year, they think he might go ahead of JSN, Jackson Smith and Jigba.
No. We know better. That's not smart. That's not smart.
Yeah, it's not. I just think it does speak a little bit to kind of just the level of talent Ohio State has in that receiver room.
It's ridiculous. It really is.
Okay, another huge upset. Another top 10 upset. Kansas State 41, Oklahoma 34. Kansas State has now beaten Oklahoma 3 of the last 4 years. Yeah. They just seem to have their number. Oklahoma was humming along this season, looking great, looking like the clear-cut Big 12 favorite.
Yes.
And then, as he always does, Adrian Martinez just destroyed them. I'm kidding, obviously, because Adrian Martinez does not have a great history of destroying defenses, but he played out of his mind in that game. 4 rushing touchdowns, I believe, 1 passing. And Kansas State just figured out a way. And Oklahoma kind of looked like the Alex Grinch defense of the last several years, where they ran into a buzzsaw and just couldn't figure it out.
Yeah. When the buzzsaw is Adrian Martinez, like your defense has some holes when he is absolutely just ripping run after run off against your defense. There was I think a 3rd and 16 or 3rd and 12. This was late 4th quarter. OU has a chance to get the ball back. Martinez runs for like legitimately 50 yards before anyone touches him. Just like it wasn't a designed run. He just takes the snap and then gone. And yeah, it just wasn't even touched. And that is like, you don't see that happen at Georgia, like in Georgia's defense. Even Ohio State, you don't see that happen. Just a total missed assignment. Like you had to know that Martinez was very much, at least it was very a high possibility that he was going to run the ball there. And you had no one, no spy, nothing. And it was all left. So yeah, Oklahoma, that's a gut check for them. Like I had them as like a sneaky playoff contender through 3 weeks. After 4 weeks, it's a little different story. Yeah. Dylan Gabriel's a stud. Oklahoma's quarterback though, no doubt. But some things to fix on the defense, we could say.
Yeah, I think it's probably fair to assume that Oklahoma could still easily be a 10-2 type of team. Yes. But we probably have to back off a little bit on some of the playoff hype for them, which is no big deal. I mean, it's Brent Venables' first season. He's recruiting well, so yeah. All right, USC 17, Oregon State 14. We complained about this game being on the Pac-12 network. I think it probably would have been fun to watch. We both had USC as a lock.
We did
to cover 6.5, I believe.
Yeah,
they won the turnover battle 4-0.
I know.
And somehow only won this game by 3 points. What happened here? Because they didn't turn the ball over on offense. Oregon State is not exactly known for an incredible defense. USC has done nothing but just score bunches of points on everyone this year. Yet they scored 17. What in the world?
They had 14 of those points in overtime. So they had 3 points going into the fourth quarter. This was USC's offense, which was scalding like literally all year. They're absolutely smashing people.
14 of those points in the fourth quarter.
That's what I said. Like they had 14 of their 17 in the fourth quarter. They entered the fourth only with a field goal.
Yep.
Made zero sense to me. It was a tough loss for us in the Locks.
Yeah.
Truthfully, they were just lucky to get out of there with a win. If we're being really honest, like that's a come from behind win. And yeah, I don't understand it, especially when you have 4 interceptions. Like Oregon State had 170 passing yards, no touchdowns, and 4 picks. That should be, to me, that should be like, 45-10, 45-17 territory for USC. And it's a 17-14 slugfest. So Oregon State, good coach. You're high on Oregon State this year.
I am. Yes. I was very frustrated this game was on the Pac-12 network, and they're doing it to us again this week. So we'll talk about that. Yeah. Okay. Oregon State is now playing Utah this week on the Pac-12 network. So
nice. Yes. Love that.
Yeah. It's really ridiculous. All right. One final game to cover from last week. Washington 40, Stanford 22. Washington, their offense is humming right along.
Yes, it is.
They are looking quite good. So we just talked about USC looking a little bit down. Is there a chance Washington contends for the Pac-12 this year?
Oh yeah. I am buying in on all of the Washington hype right now. DeBoer is okay. You mentioned, I think, in the preseason that you thought that they could. Okay, how would you put it? Washington could be this year's
Tennessee. Well, what Tennessee was last year, where they hired a good offensive coach after a previous head coach who was just like the kind of guy who just craps on his own team's offense.
Yeah. No, I like that. Hey, your guy Penix, like he left Indiana, yes. and I wrote him off. I thought he was kind of washed. Like it was a really bad last year for him there, and absolutely has turned it on. Like they've hit a whole nother gear. And Stanford's really bad. Stanford is really a bad football team. They have a good quarterback and nothing else. So pretty much betting against Stanford is a pretty good, indicator. But Washington's a good football team. They're going to be a tough out in the Pac-12. You're not seeing, I don't know if you noticed this, you're not seeing USC run away with it and hide. USC looks kind of beatable. Like Oregon is beatable. Utah is beatable. All these teams, there's tough teams, but they're beatable. So I like where Washington's at. I think they're in a sneaky place right now to get someone here at the end of the year.
DeBoer has this crazy knack for getting his quarterbacks comfortable where it just they just look confident. Penix just looks confident every time he goes to throw the ball. And there's something so big about that, about the kind of offensive mind that can just scheme things where there's no doubt, you're just chucking it because you believe it's going to be there. And that's so big.
Whatever Texas A&M has is the opposite of what Kalen DeBoer is. Like, does that make sense? Like if you put DeBoer in charge of A&M's offense and it's smooth, like that gets really exciting. But agreement here. We talk about easy yards all the time. DeBoer is one of those guys that schemes easy yards. Yeah,
sure. Okay, just a brief recap on the locks for the week. So we were 3-7 overall. Most of that was on me. Ashton, you were 1-2. I was 2-5. So Ashton, your win was Arkansas plus 2.5. Close losses: Texas -6 and USC -6.5. Your season record is still 9-5, still doing quite well. My wins for the week were Arkansas plus 2.5 and Ohio State -18. My losses were Michigan -17, Texas -6, Oklahoma -13, the outright loss there, USC -6.5. And then the one that bugged me was Iowa Rutgers. I had the under 36. 37 points were scored in this game, and there were 2 defensive touchdowns by Iowa, a pick 6 and a scoop and score. This is one of those where you feel like you made the absolute right choice and you just still lose it. So the right choice is the one that gets paid. I didn't get paid on this one, but So Congrats to Iowa for having an over hit this year.
It might be the only one. That number was so stunningly low. And yeah, they somehow sneak it out. So you said it was at 36 and the total was 37. Is that right?
Yeah, I got it at 36, and by kickoff, I think it was down to 34. So like,
Okay. Yeah.
I yeah, I felt like I was on the right side of it. It just, I mean, when you have two defensive touchdowns,
Not much you can do. Yeah.
there's just not a whole lot you can do.